I've started the recording. I'll post it in the announcements after class is over. So let me go ahead and share my screen. Bear with me for just a moment. All right, so can you see the home page okay?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you. So let me just jump right into the weekly overviews. Um, just as a reminder, here we are this week. Your project is due this Saturday. Um, I think last week when we met, I opened the floor and asked if you had any questions. I'll start by asking again. Um, do either of you have any questions regarding the project?
No, ma'am.
Okay. All right. So, and both of you did watch the video. Adam, Ashley, did you both watch the video?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. So you know that while you're working to get your project finished up before this Saturday, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'll be more than happy to assist you with any questions that you might be having. Ashley, do you have any questions for me? Okay. Thank you for responding in the chat, Ashley. All right. So I'm going to go ahead then and get into the final exam. So there's a variety of ways you could get to it. Of course, you can go into the weekly overviews and just click on the finals week, and this information will come up. You could also click on activities and assignments, and then there's a link to the final exam information. Okay. So I'm going to cover each of these items for you so that you know how to proceed with the final exam. And if you have any kind of logistical or administrative questions, don't hesitate to ask me. Now, as far as the actual physical science part of it, I don't answer those types of questions on the final exam. That is totally for you to work through. But if, hey, if something's, a link is not working or something's not clear as far as the instructions, you can definitely reach out to me uh, on that note. I'll be more than happy to help. Okay. So it says here, please read and review all of the items below before you begin the final exam. So, you know, you want to go through these items, which I will do so that you know how to proceed. Tells you that your completed final exam part 1 is due no later than 11:59 p.m. on Saturday, 28 November. And you may be asking yourself the question, well, why are you covering it now? Because the exam is going to actually open on the 21st, which is this Saturday. So you'll be turning in your project and the final exam will be available so that you have a week to work out your scheduling and get it done. Okay. So it's not like, you got to take the exam on this day and that's the only day. You have a week to work it out, just like with everything else you've done in this class. Okay. So it says, please follow the final exam submission instructions for part 1 of your final exam. So we'll take a look at that in just a moment. Please follow the Unlock Canvas guide to have part 2 of your final exam proctored. And you can see um, there's the Unlock Canvas guide. Okay. I suggest that you try the Unlock practice exam first, and you can see there's a practice exam there. So you can play with that to make sure, your webcam is right. You have your ID and everything all straight, so that by the time you're ready to do the part 2 of it, then you'll be, you have worked out all the kinks. Okay. And then it says, when ready, click the Unlock link to the left, which you can see there's an Unlock link on the left menu, and proceed and click the Unlock to the left to get to part 2 of the final exam. So when you click on the Unlock link, you'll see a screen that'll take you to part 2 of the final exam. Okay. It says the final discussion session is due no later than 11:59 p.m. Saturday on the 28th of November. So you're going to do the final exam and then this final discussion, and we'll take a look at each one to kind of give you some idea of what you're working with. Okay. So basically, when you wrap up your items and get them to me Saturday the 28th of November, you're done on me to get everything graded. Okay, just want to make sure you understand it. So let's take a look at the final exam logistics. I'll open it up in another screen here. All right. So I just give you a little bit background here. Okay, about, I don't really care for exams, but I have to give a final. So that's the only exam you have in this class. The idea is for you to be able to show that you can apply certain concepts and so on and so forth. All right. It's due again Saturday. All right. Final exam format. The final exam will consist of 2 parts. Part 1 of the final exam is the handwritten simulation experiment and the lab report. Part 1 of the final exam is worth 50 points. Okay. We'll take a look at it in just a moment. Part 2 is the proctored post-lab and lab skills portion of the final exam. Part 2 of the final exam is worth 50 points. The post-lab is worth 25. The lab skills is worth 25. You will have to scan or photograph part 1, the handwritten portion of your exam, and submit it electronically by email. Directions for submitting your exam are provided provided on Canvas in the final exam submission instructions document. So when you open that, it tells you, look, by now you know how to turn things into me. If there's something that you need to send directly to me, you submit it by email. And by now you should be familiar with that, but we'll make sure. Okay. Part 2 of your exam will be proctored via Unlock. Directions for using Unlock are provided in the Unlock Canvas guide. All right. What material will be covered? Part 1 of the final exam will deal with the following topic. It's a simulation on static fluids and the accompanying lab report. So just like you've been doing all semester, you're going to do a simulation, and then you're going to complete the experiment handout, and then you're going to use that to write a lab report. And we'll look at exactly what goes in the lab report here in a moment. Part 2 of the final exam will cover the following topics. It's the post-lab of the final exam. So just like with every experiment you've done, you do experiment, you write a lab report, you do a post-lab. So you're going to have a post-lab for this as well. The only difference is, instead of the post-lab being done as a discussion, the post-lab is going to be done through proctoring on Unlock. Part 2 of, item 2 of part 2 is the lab skills part of the exam. And it's going to deal with error analysis, percent error, because all semester you've been practicing percent error, and I want to see if you know how to do it. It's going to deal with graphing, linear functions, nonlinear function, and graphing techniques. So can you do a good graph? Something I've been harping on all semester. And then do you something regarding laboratory techniques, primary measurement, right? Because I've been highlighting the point that all of this physical science stuff is based on measurement, and all the experiments that you've done in some form or fashion, you've had to deal with this notion of measurement, okay? The final exam is worth 100 points. So 50 points for part 1, 50 points for part 2. Additional exam information is available on the course Canvas website. So this is what we're going through right now. All of this and all of the other things regarding the exam. And when you turn in your exam, you'll get a score back a week later because I have to turn in grades. So, I've got to get it graded. It is essential that you submit exams on time. Makeup examinations will not be given without legal documentation warranting absence, a doctor's excuse, obituary, judge's order, something official that can be verified. So while I don't take lab reports and post labs late for your regular experiments, for the final exam, if something happens, because it's such a large part of your score or overall grade, if you have something happen and you have an excuse that can be verified, not just a note from home or something like that, then we can work out having a makeup. Okay. So before I go any further, what are your questions regarding the logistics of this final exam? Adam, Ashley, any questions?
So part 1 and part 2 are on the honor lock system?
No, it tells you that part 2 is proctored. Part 1 is not, right? It tells you that what? Part 1 is the handwritten simulation experiment and the lab report. Part 2 is proctored.
All right.
Right? And that's what it tells you right here. Okay? So you have to submit part 1 of the final exam to me, but part 2 is proctored. That makes sense?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So now we got the logistics down. Let's take a look at how you submit to me part 1, because it tells you what? Follow the final exam submission instructions for part 1. So you can see right here, it says what? Email it to me, right? So that's how you're going to turn in part 1. You email it to me, not part 2. That clear for everybody how you're going to send me part 1?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Okay. All right. Now, I did give you a study guide. So let's take a look at that study guide. Okay. So the study guide has practice questions that deal with the 3 areas that you're going to see on the lab skills part. I can't give you a practice for the experiment or a practice for the post lab, but I can give you a practice so that you can see how well you're able to deal with error analysis, graphing, and laboratory techniques, because that's part of what part 2 deals with. Okay. So what I suggest to students is you try this study guide before you get into the actual exam. Why? Because if you have questions about the study guide, I will answer them for you. Because that's what it is, it's a study guide. So let's say today is Monday and you decide on Wednesday you're going to try the study guide. And you have a question about something here because it's not clear to you. You can definitely reach out to me for that. But once you start that final exam, I will not answer any questions about the final exam other than administrative or logistical. Okay. So, what do you do with this study guide? Well, you can send it to me by the final exam due date. Email it to me, and it'll be worth 5 bonus points toward the final exam. Okay. So if you email me this study guide along with your part 1, then it's worth 5 additional points. Any questions on the study guide?
No, ma'am.
Okay. All right. The Honor Lock Canvas Guide, it guides you through step by step on how you set up your computer to take the exam using Honor Lock. Notice Honor Lock only works in Chrome. So if you're not currently using a Chrome browser to navigate Canvas, you are going to have to use Chrome to take the part 2 of the final exam. Okay. And so it walks you through step by step the things that you need to do. Pay particular attention to making sure that you install the Unlock extension in Chrome, okay? And it gives you all the instructions on how to do that, okay? So this is why I suggested to you that you do the practice exam first, because then you can work out all the kinks and make sure you have Unlock up and functioning properly on your, you know, in your Canvas, in your Chrome browser, so that when you go to take the actual exam, you won't have any trouble, okay? Because it'll walk you through this Unlock Canvas guide, walk you through step by step how you set everything up. And then when you do the practice exam, it's going to ask you certain things, and you're going to have to make sure all of that is working. And then you can take the actual part 2 of the exam. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, good. Okay, so and then you click on the practice exam here, and it's going to take you to Unlock. Let's see if I do it. So right now, you just see my setup instructions here. Is because I'm signed in as a faculty member, as a teacher. So my screen looks a little different when I go in there. But when you click on it, it's going to actually prompt you to run through the setup using Unlock. Okay. All right. So that's why when I click on it here, it'll look a little bit different than what you have. You know, if you click on the left side and click on Unlock here, you'll see it come up. See, there's an Unlock practice quiz, and you can actually try it. Okay. So do that before you try the actual exam, because what you don't want is to try to be taking the actual exam and be having issues. You know, and Unlock is not difficult to use, but it does, you know, you have to do a few things to make sure everything works right. Okay. All right. So now, when you have gone through these items here and everything is going, you know, you walk through those, you can click on part 1 of the final exam. You actually have access to this part of the final exam starting on the 21st. Okay. No, excuse me. No, this part you have access to it right now, because I just made it as a page, and you can download it, print it out, whatever, as long as you turn it in to me by the 28th. You know, I mean, if you turn it in late, I'm not going to accept it anyway. So what difference does it make whether you can get into it right now or not, right? So you do have access to that right now. You can go into the actual part 1 of the final exam. It's just due by the 28th. Okay. And I won't take it after that unless you have proper documentation. So, you know, I mean, and you know, the worry for me is not, well, you know, couldn't I get together? Couldn't I get together with Ashley? You know, Adam and Ashley want to get together and work on part 1 in the final exam. I don't really care because it's not being proctored. Okay. Does that make sense to you?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm not saying that I don't care if you copy from Ashley or if Ashley copies from you, because if I get 2 exams that look exactly identical, then, you know, that's going to be an issue. But let's say y'all wanted to work together and, you know, bounce ideas off of each other, but each person does their own work. That's what I'm talking about. Okay. Because it's a simulation. You know, it put it this way. Even if you did the exact same simulation, I doubt if you will answer every question exactly identical. So that's what I'm saying. And then when you have to write your lab report and Ashley's lab report would be different. And same thing for anybody else in the class. If 2 people have the exact same lab report, then I'm going to call into question whether they just copied from one another. So you don't want to do that kind of thing, right? I mean, I don't suspect I even have that issue with you two, because y'all have been doing your own work independently all throughout the course. But, you know, I just bring that up so that students are aware All right, this is an exam, even though part 1 is being done out of class and not proctored. Okay, so you click on part 1 of the final exam. You have the option, you can use whatever version of it you like, if you want to use the PDF or the Word document, or if you don't want to use either one of those and you just want to do this stuff and write out your answers on paper. I don't have a problem with that. Okay, so let's see how this works. So you go to this simulator, open it, okay? And it says then what? Click the big red 5, bam, simulator opens. You got all your great bells and whistles, you know, whatever, okay? And then you can adjust these values, okay? And then you can, I mean, if you wanted to pretend you're on Jupiter, so great, you know, and then you're gonna follow whatever setup you're being asked to use in the handout, okay? So you open up this simulator and you're going to use it to answer these questions, okay? All right. These exact same questions and processes in the handout. If you wanted to print that out and work through them on there, fine. After you have finished this, please don't forget to use the what goes in the lab report, okay? So you can click on it right here and get to what goes in the lab report, or you can click on it right here. Either way, okay? So this tells you what goes in the lab report. So you're going to do the experiment, complete the experiment handout, use that to write your lab report. Now, let me caution you. Since this lab report and experiment handout are worth 5 times what a regular lab report, right? A regular lab report and everything is worth 10 points. This is worth 50. So that means the point deductions are 5 times higher. Okay? So be mindful of that. Take your time, slow down, make sure you write a good, strong lab report to address all these areas. Don't forget to put the link to the simulator under how you did it, because this, you know, is your last chance to prove to me that you know how to write a strong and solid lab report. Don't forget, in the conclusion, you have to tell me something about static fluids that you learned that you didn't know when you started. Okay? So, do you have any questions about the simulator, the experiment handout, or the lab report that you have to write?
No, ma'am.
You have a question, Ashley? If you can't open your mic and talk to me, just type it in the chat. If you're all good, give me a thumbs up. You have no questions. All right, good. Just want to make sure, because, you know, this is important. It's worth 20% of your grade. So we want to make sure at all times you are understanding the process here. Oh, I do need to go back and add a link to take you back to the weekly overview. I knew I was forgetting something there. All right, so we've looked at that. And then your final discussion. So let me open this up. Okay, final discussion. Look, and it says it right there in the title. Do not reply below or share your answers with your classmates. This is something that you do on your own. For your final discussion session, please email your responses to questions listed below to me at, and there's my email address, by this the 28th at 11:59 p.m. So you're going to answer these questions for me and email it to me. Do not post this in a discussion forum, because I don't want you sharing your answers with your classmates. Does that make sense?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, because every semester I get students who treat this like a regular discussion. It is not. It is a final discussion where you are going to share your opinions about certain things with me and not with everybody else. Okay? All right. So we've looked at the instructions for the week. We've looked at for the final exam. We've looked at each of these items regarding the final exam. Of course, if you have any administrative or logistical questions, you can click on the class questions link and post a question, and I will respond to you, okay? Or if a classmate is looking, they can respond to you. Although all semester nobody has posted any questions for me there, you still have that option, or you can email me if you have a question, okay? So remember, this final exam will open this Saturday, the part 2 of it, right? Because it tells you when you're ready, click honor lock and start part 2. Okay. All right. And then you also see here the practice exam as well. You can click on honor lock to take the practice exam. Okay. All right. So one final time, what are your questions? All right. So with that, I will stop my sharing. And if you have a specific question that you want to ask me, please feel free to hang around. Otherwise, we're done. You're quite welcome, Ashley. Have a great day. I'm going to try to do that. Thank you.
For the, whenever we had the midterm exam for physical science,
Midterm exam, which class are you in?
the physical science, it was from 11 to 12:15.
Yes, sir.
And you could use the notes, whatever.
Yes.
Can we still use the notes, or is it just?
Yes,
No.
and it explain that to you in the instructions that are on honor lock when you go to take the exam. Right?
So we can.
So that's why it tells you in here. I'll go back and add it here in the logistics. You can use printed materials, but you can't use a computer or anything like that. Just like you had to follow for the midterm, for the exam in class, it'll explain that to you for part 2 when you go to honor lock, because I have to put instructions. So you won't be able to get into the exam. I can show you the settings where it tells you, you can use a scientific calculator. You cannot use websites. You have to have your photo ID and all of that. And then it has some additional instructions. You see, tells you here, you can use any resources that you choose, including textbooks and formula sheets. You can use a calculator. You are not allowed to use a phone, tablet, or any URLs. That's websites. So that I'll take this statement right here, and I'm going to go add it to the logistics so that it's clear that that's the rules that you have to follow. Thanks for pointing that out to me.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, that's it. Thanks for the
All right.
everything. All right, bye.
Bye now.